Hi, welcome to How Are the Children podcast. I am Bridgette Weir, pastor at St. Matthew Lutheran in Taylorsville, Utah.
Hi, I'm Lita Behrens, pastor at Our Saviors in Fort Collins, Colorado.
Yeah, and we are so grateful to be here with you today for the second Sunday in Lent. We are doing the Sanctified Arts curriculum sermon study program of Tell Me Something Good. Grounding, or what is it? Our grounding. Oh my gosh, I just went blank on their little tagline.
Oh,
Grounding
okay.
ourselves in the good
Crystals in
news
the
of
good
Lent.
news.
Yeah,
I was
grounding
like,
ourselves in
what
the
are you
good news of
doing?
Lent. Hi, I don't know what you're doing. So, hi, welcome to Monday of Lent, where the brain doesn't know what day it is after how busy last week was for all of us with Ash Wednesday. And if some of you had Shrove Tuesday, pancake dinners, my church did not. Did your church, Lita,
We
have one?
did. It
Good.
was fun.
That is
Yeah.
very fun.
There's even a gluten-free pancake bar.
Oh, that's
Yes.
very. She and I are both gluten free, so
All the
friends.
toppings.
Yeah, friends, you know that if you're gluten free too, the how special that is
I think that like all the gluten-free people come to the pancake service or dinner because they know it's going to be there.
for them.
So,
Well, that's
nice.
fantastic hospitality.
Yeah.
And hospitality is one of the pieces of God's good news that we could talk about in our texts for this Sunday. And let me pull up the PowerPoint and we'll get started. And as always, at the front of the PowerPoint is, um, oops, the definitions of what is childist biblical interpretation. So you can, if you're new to this lens of childist biblical interpretation, it's a great way to dig in just a little bit. And we have a few other resources that you can read and learn more about this. But this is it in a nutshell. And so even if you kind of forget from time to time some nuances as we all dig into this method a little bit more, we'll get better at remembering how to look at all the different ways that children are impacted or part of the biblical text. So, Sanctified Arts has two texts that are both gospel this week. We're going to look at both of them, and that's my bias because I kind of have an interesting connection that I'm thinking about, and maybe it'll help you all in your um, sermon preparation as well, or not. Results may vary. So we're going to start with Matthew 25, and we're going to read both the Luke 7 and the Matthew 25, and then sort of dig in to these texts. Lita, would you like to read Matthew 25 for us?
Yes. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you gave me clothing. I was sick, and you took care of me. I was in prison, and you visited me. Then the righteous will answer him, Lord, when was it that we saw you hungry and gave you food, or thirsty and gave you something to drink? And when was it that we saw you a stranger and welcomed you, or naked and gave you clothing? And when was it that we saw you sick or in prison and visited you? And the king will answer them, Truly, I tell you, just as you did it to one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did it to me.
I mean, we are in a moment where we could preach on Matthew 25 all day long and twice
Yep.
on Sunday, and it wouldn't hurt any of us to hear it time and again. When I do some demonstrations and prayer vigils at our federal building here in Salt Lake City, this is a text we usually open and close with
Okay.
for our demonstrations because it's one that transcends many of our ecumenical partners and even some of our interfaith partners, even our Jewish partners. You know, this text is really right out of the Torah as well. So, this is a lovely way to ground any sort of activism, advocacy, organizing work that you might be doing yourself. And lots of ties to what's happening around immigration and LGBTQ work happening in many of our state legislatures this season. The second text that they've woven together for this Sunday is Luke 7:36 through 50. And I'll read at least some of it. And if I get bored, I'll hand over to Lita. So, Luke 7. One of the Pharisees asked Jesus to eat with him. And when he went into the Pharisee's house, he reclined to dine. And a woman in the city who was a sinner, having learned that he was eating in the Pharisee's house, brought an alabaster jar of ointment. She stood behind him at his feet, weeping, and began to bathe his feet with her tears and to dry them with her hair, kissing his feet and anointing them with the ointment. Now, when the Pharisee who had invited him saw it, he said to himself, "If this man were a prophet, he would have known who and what kind of woman this is who is touching him, that she is a sinner." Goodness.
I like your dramatic flair there.
Jesus spoke up and said to him, "Simon, I have something to say to you." "Teacher," he replied, "speak." That sounds really rude to me, but interesting. A certain moneylender had two debtors. One owed 500 denarii and the other 50. When they could not pay, he canceled the debts for both of them. "Now, which of them will love him more?" Simon answered, "I suppose the one for whom he canceled the greater debt." And Jesus said to him, "You have judged rightly." Then turning toward the woman, he said to Simon, "Do you see this woman? I entered your house. You gave me no water for my feet, but she has bathed my feet with her tears and dried them with her hair. You gave me no kiss, but from the time I came in, she has not stopped kissing my feet. You did not anoint my head with oil, but she has anointed my feet with ointment. Therefore, I tell you, her many sins have been forgiven. Hence, she has shown great love. But the one to whom little is forgiven loves little." Then he said to her, "Your sins are forgiven." But those who were at the table with him began to say among themselves, "Who is this who even forgives sins?" But he said to the woman, "Your faith has saved you. Go in peace." So before we get started, I do want to do a little bit of a content notice or trigger warning. I do have some ideas around the woman that have to do with sex work and impropriety and tying them to some things like happening in our world around the Epstein files with women and children. So if you are watching this and you are a survivor of sexual assault or human trafficking or any of those horrific things, please know the rest of this podcast may or may not be for you, or don't watch it alone. Or take really good care of yourself. Know you might need some self-care to work through this text. Even having read it, I know that can trigger some folks because of how this woman has been labeled falsely by a lot of commentators. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that, but I wanted folks to have an opportunity to ground themselves in a way that will be helpful, because this could be a hard conversation going forward. I even found myself, I don't want to speak fine a point on it, but it just reminded me of the ways our patriarchal structure are not eroding fast enough, I guess. This is 2,000 years old. So I'm just thinking of that. So I want you all to take good care of yourselves. So this is, I just kind of briefly looking at these two texts together. I am weaving them. If you don't find that helpful, I apologize. I guess put a comment on YouTube and be like, that was not good. Okay. But where are the children? So in Matthew, we just get this little snippet, right? It comes after the sheep and the goats. And I think Jesus is only talking to the disciples. That's what I could discern in this, but it could be they were in the background. They're found in the least of these, though, that Jesus is talking about, right? Jesus isn't only talking about adults who are sick, adults who are imprisoned, um, not only, talking about adults who are naked and thirsty and hungry. This is about people of all ages and stages. And I think when we start to try to humanize and put faces on the sick, right, these labels, it can help us to understand the radicalness of what Jesus is saying, and how we really do see each other. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. At Luke, it's possible they were at the dinner table. I don't know if there'd be a kids' table. Um, I would think Jesus would be at the kids' table because that would be more fun. But, um, but probably children were at least servants in the Pharisees' home, and that should have an apostrophe. Um, but those were the kind of places they would for sure be in the city, some of the larger spaces that were mentioned. But I would think they would also be in the background here. I mean, Lita, is there anything I'm missing that you caught?
No, um, not about where they were
Yeah,
physically.
like if we're talking actual physical in the story, right?
Yeah.
Of course, there's wide ranging implications and impacts of these texts. So I was really um, taken by noticing that Jesus looks at the Pharisee Simon, who has a name. The woman is unnamed. That's the other thing to keep in mind here. So that already tells us something about the hierarchical, patriarchal structure that Luke is even working under, operating under his own worldview. Most of the women in the Gospels are not named. Luke does a better job than some of the other Gospel writers, but this woman remains unnamed. The word see, Jesus turns to the Pharisee and turns to the woman and says, "Do you see her?" And then in the Matthew 25, we get, "Lord, when was it we saw you?" Right?
Yeah.
And that was really intriguing to me, because what is it that we see? Um, it's important to know who we see and why that matters, in our day to day life. And do we really see people or do we see labels? The one piece, the woman was labeled a sinner. And likely, I'm going to go back to the Greek in a second, but I just want to talk about how she was a woman in the city who was a sinner. Commentators from thousands of years have said, well, she must be a sex worker or an adulterer. However, Luke really never talks about prostitution or sex work, in the same ways that the other gospelers do. But most commentators were what gender, Lita, typically?
I think they were male.
Yeah, pretty
Yeah.
heavily.
Yeah.
Amy Jill Levine, if you do not have, this can be one of the things I love. I love her commentaries.
Yes.
And she did a really great job of talking about, yeah, there's actually, we don't know what her sin was.
Right.
And being in this city for Luke would be more about economics. That we know she was an urban dweller, and Luke was probably writing to urban dwellers, so it would locate her in their midst,
Yeah.
of his community's midst. Um, so, you know, the new Revised Interpreter's Bible Commentary calls her a harlot. I was kind of
A
shocked.
new
A harlot.
which one?
This one here, I
Oh
got it
my
right here. I
gosh.
mean, it's even like it's not even the old, because I have some of my father-in-law's old ones from the 60s, but this
Yeah,
is
yeah.
like the latest and greatest, right? Calls her a,
It says harlot?
it says harlot.
Where are they getting this?
I don't know. Well, 1955 called and wants their harlot back. Um,
Jeez.
I know. I was like, I was horrified. Like I was
Yeah.
like, it sort of for me negated everything else they said in the commentary. Like
Well,
I was like,
yeah.
I
Like
can't
you
believe
can
they
throw
didn't
it
have
away
it.
now.
I know that because nowhere does it say she's a harlot. Nowhere does it say that
No.
she's a sinner. But who else are sinners,
Everybody,
including the male Pharisee, right?
including the male Ferris.
Right. I mean, it's likely Luke says that. Well, this is my speculation. I wonder if Luke says that because it'll point out the sin of the Pharisee as they go along in the story, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
maybe results may vary, and maybe some of you that are better biblical scholars than I am, again online, will tell me I'm wrong. But it just goes back to the culture wars around women and children are apparently timeless, sadly. Like apparently it's just what we do. Um Not seen as full humans. They have to have some sort of label because if she had money for the ointment, it doesn't say myrrh or nard. It doesn't say any of those things. It just says ointment, but an alabaster jar isn't cheap.
Right,
So we know she had some means, and it doesn't say she's attached to any male.
right.
So she, she's kind of being set up as this independent woman in the city. I mean, maybe it's like a Carrie Bradshaw Sex in the City kind of thing. I don't know. Um, but but it kind of leads to the what do we do with women and children in our culture? Even today, we objectify them, right?
Hmm.
And right now, our big culture war is we have to protect the women and children from whatever made up harmful thing we're going to. In Utah, we have the transgender laws, the anti transgender laws, excuse me, particularly around we can't have men in women's sports, which that is not what's happening. I mean,
Right,
because to protect the girls and women, okay, right? The bathroom laws, right? That's another one.
right.
And I, I just wash your hands. I don't like, I, yeah. So, and what that really tells us is that because we're worried about people pretending to be women, like, well, that would not be a transgender person. They're not pretending. That
They're
is who
not
they
pretending.
are.
Yeah.
And so you're worried about are actually ostensibly straight white men. Hmm. But I think about that, we have to protect women and children, and yet we have these same people from the very tops of our government that are implicated in this very apparently far reaching human trafficking, sex exploitation ring, right? That
Right.
abuse women and children. And let's be clear, there's no such thing as an underage woman. That's a child,
Right.
right? And it's like different sides of this same patriarchal, misogynistic coin. And that's what kind of is screaming out to me in these texts is, oh my goodness, it, we objectify people. We don't
Yeah.
see them. And that takes me to the Greek work I did a little bit. Um, and that is Luke. In when Jesus says, "Do you see her?" The Greek there is blepo. Some of you Greek scholars might remember, which is to see with bodily eyes. So yes, it's the physical, right?
Right.
And it's to weigh carefully or discern or to understand.
Hmm.
And I liked that. Like, okay, like, are you seeing her carefully? Look what she's doing. Like, look at her whole entirety, right?
Yeah.
Her whole embodiment. Her love is embodied. Um, and Amy Jill Levine points out that her action of kissing Jesus' feet and wiping Jesus' feet would be sensual, but not necessarily considered erotic, which I
Okay.
think, we kind of get the whole Ruth Boaz thing there, right? Putting
Right.
things at people's feet, which was a euphemism. Um, but Amy Jill Levine isn't so sure that that's what that is here, that this is really, she and I'm hoping I'm not totally misrepresenting this, but my understanding of it, I'll say it that way, was this is like, yeah, it's sensual, but not erotic. It's in a big crowd, right? It's not, um, and to Jesus' point, nobody offered to wash his feet or give him anything to wash his own feet. So, and we talk about the kiss of peace, right? There's no kiss of peace there. There's no, so
Yeah.
she's offering hospitality, which ties in with what you were talking about earlier around hospitality pieces with the Shrove Tuesday
Oh, yeah.
gluten-free bar, right? It's like this radical hospitality where everyone has their needs met um, individually, right? That it's really important to see people for who they are, totally. Even if you can't have a delicious gluten-y pancake, you could have, right? You are offering them something else.
Right.
And then in Matthew 25, when was it we saw? The Greek there is, I might mispronounce this, horao, which means to see with eyes and to take heed, to be aware, and to care for. And I'm like, what? There's a tie there between these two texts, right? Um, when we fully see someone and weigh them carefully, it's really hard to look away from their need.
Yeah.
I mean, so, and I think about how and some of us in more red states are really struggling with how children are not physically seen, discerned, understood, or cared for or heeded. We've got a lot of bills going through that are um, clearly not seeing people as anything other than a label. We have a lot
Yeah.
of anti immigration laws that affect children right now in Utah. One is, and it's about to pass the Senate, and I really hope not, is to demand that any food pantry that gets any government, state, or federal funding to buy food has to be sure that everyone getting that food is a citizen, right? And which means we'll have more hungry people and more hungry children because we've got folks in mixed status, right? The kids are citizens, but parents aren't. Well, who's going to go get the food? The parent. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. So we have some things like that happening that makes me think, do we even see them physically and their specific needs for their age and stage of life? And do we heed them? Do we care for them? That should be care and not are. Sorry about that. I'll
Mhm.
fix it. But um, that's kind of where my mind is going with this. I mean, Lita, what do you? I mean, I've kind of thrown a lot out there. Hi, clean it up for me
Hi.
because yeah, can you synthesize all of this because I got a lot going on in my brain.
Well, I think this will relate. One of the things that stood out to me is the woman um is in a vulnerable position in
Oh,
society,
yeah,
but
yeah,
also she is and children would have been too.
yeah.
Um, but she's coming to Jesus also in vulnerability, like
Oh, yeah.
wanting to show affection, wanting to,
Hmm. Hmm.
anoint, care for, recognize who he is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost this, she's not ashamed. Other people are trying to put shame on her.
Right, the honor shame code, right? That is,
Yeah.
yeah. Yep, yep, yep.
And it's almost like, but Jesus receives it not as her being weak, but her being open, her seeing
Yeah.
who he really is
Hmm.
And even from like this kind of gets a little broad, but it's almost like she has a childlike faith,
Hmm.
which he has upheld in other
Yeah.
times. And and then we've got like the Pharisee who's just kind of judging all of it.
Right.
So,
And yeah, that's good. I mean, the other thing is that it occurred to me, I wonder if this was out of character for her.
yeah, could have been if she has her
And
own
maybe,
way of supporting herself and
yeah. And maybe that's neither here nor there. But that occurred to me as you were talking about the vulnerability. It's like, I wonder if this is like she recognized who Jesus was. And actually, this is a good segue um, to some other thoughts because, all of my thoughts come with bonus thoughts. Um, hi, ADHD here. So I think about a lot of things. But so if you go down to the third bullet point, again, this whole idea is the woman forgiven first, and that's why she recognizes Jesus and showers Jesus with love? Or does she shower Jesus with love, trusting she'll be forgiven? Like a chicken and the egg thing. Like
yeah,
how are love and forgiveness connected?
yeah.
Um, I so yeah, I mean, because this passage literally drips, pun
Uh-huh,
intended,
uh-huh.
of
Good one.
grace, forgiveness, and love.
Yeah.
In Luke 42, the Greek is better translated in for the parable of the credit lender, the money lender. He
Hmm.
gave them both grace. That's actually
Hmm.
it's Eucharistio, the charis. Um, Greek word there. It's they he gave them both grace. And in verse 43, when Jesus says which one, you know, is more grateful, the Pharisee, the exact translation is I lift up that for whom the greater is forgiven. So our translation doesn't do it justice that we've got grace and forgiveness back to back in this passage.
Uh-huh.
Um, and so do we see Jesus' grace and love? And what's our response?
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, and so, no, I had a thought and I kind of lost it. I mean, what I'm trying to kind of get to is I think for me, the question of how does she know this is Jesus and she trusts him so immensely in this honor shame culture to do what she does, this unnamed woman. Because Jesus clearly doesn't know her. He knows Simon the Pharisee.
Right.
Um, but how does she? What's her level of trust and in Jesus' forgiveness? Like, is Jesus declaring what she already knew, that her sins were forgiven, that her faith?
Oh,
Like, did she already know that?
she already knew that.
Or, was it a statement of the obvious, or was it a blessing? Like, was it a proclamation, something Jesus had done? So that sermonators are something you'll have to wrestle with. And I mean, and there is no good answer. I mean, this is like the
Yeah,
$1 million question, right? Is what do we think the impetus was? And you could go either way, and the text fits.
sure.
And so you can play with it, and that what is most important for your folks to hear,
Yeah,
right? That maybe it's a both and, right? You can make a complete fool out of yourself in front of Jesus, praising Jesus and trusting Jesus, and Jesus is fine with that. And you can experience God's grace and love and mercy and respond to, like, it's like a mutuality, right?
yeah,
There's an unbroken circle of forgiveness and response, like the action reflection kind of
yes.
cycle.
Yes. Well, and it's getting into forgiveness. Jesus is looking at it from a relational point of view.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Pharisee has a very, I guess, maybe moralistic or transactional
Yeah.
point of view.
Well, and he's very concerned with this woman, right? Like, does
Yeah.
Jesus know who she is?
Yeah.
What and who she is? Right? And I think about that. Um, we are very concerned with what and who people are, their labels,
Yeah.
right? Um, what are you? Who are you? What I mean, we're very, very right. We're in a season in our society of hyper identity politics,
Yeah.
and and that's what the Pharisee. I just can't unhear it. I can't unring that bell with the Pharisee, right? Of
Yeah.
what and who she is. And of course, I have more bonus thoughts. And we may not have time to get into all of this, but because I'm watching time for everybody. But, what is the connection? I think this is something you can tease out in a sermon between love and forgiveness. How would children experience this? How do we experience it? Is it separate? Is love and forgiveness separate? Or is it one and the same?
Yeah.
Right? Do we experience it as one and the same? Or do we think these are two different things? And I'm not so sure they are. And I wonder
Yeah.
if that's sort of the connection that, maybe the moneylender loved. Oh, and the love is agape, by the way. I looked
Okay.
that up in the Greek. It's agape. Um, so maybe the moneylender loved the debtors and forgave them out of love, and the debtors responded out of love for the
Right.
forgiveness. Right? There's
Right.
yeah. And then Jesus sort of hints about our capacity to love, right? The one that is forgiven most loves most. And then the one that is forgiven little loves little. I really hate that. I When Jesus says things like that, it annoys me. Like, oh, for goodness sakes. Like, yeah, I mean, is it a competition, right? Are we
Right.
measuring ourselves against each other? And again, the Pharisee is like, well, at least I'm not that.
Right.
Well,
Right.
I'm not this sinner woman in the city.
Right. But then Jesus is kind of like, and that's why you don't have much love in your life. I don't know.
Right, exact right, right. I mean, I think about Martin Luther's sin boldly.
Yes.
I mean, that
Yes.
would tie in here. Um, Love boldly, sin boldly,
Mhm.
right? That could be, I mean, there's some good news.
Forgive boldly.
Forgive boldly. That's so Lutheran.
It's so
That hurts. It's so
Lutheran.
Lutheran, right? I mean, so there's the good news. God loves boldly, forgives boldly, and we get to do the same. And sometimes that means we sin boldly because we err
Yeah.
on the side of love and forgiveness and not labeling people and shaming them. Um,
Right.
yeah, so do we, and then this also got down to with the woman and her trust of Jesus. Do we trust Jesus, trust God to see us as beloved?
Yeah.
Even when we can't even see each other or ourselves that way. And here Jesus is like, she trusts me with her whole being.
Last year I gave my congregation a word, and they got the word beloved
Ooh.
and breathe. And it's interesting how many people have said, and I use the term beloved a lot, but just have said to me over the last year, I love it when you remind me of my belovedness.
Oh, yeah.
And for I was a little worried it'd be cheesy or something, but it
Yeah.
wasn't. It's very,
Yeah.
I don't know that we automatically trust that we're actually seen as beloved.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of reminders, but I do think when we can even trust that a little bit, it gives us a chance to give that to other people.
Yeah, it makes me wonder if a way to read the Matthew 25 text this week, it might be a little heretical, so don't turn me in to my bishop. But what if you put the word beloved in front of the
Yeah.
beloved sick, the beloved imprisoned, the
And
beloved hungry, right?
yeah.
That these people are beloved and the beloved sinner,
Hmm.
right? Luke is where we get the prodigal son, um, in Luke 15.
Right.
So, how is it that the belovedness is what transcends every other label that the world wants to give us and every other way that the world wants to tell us we're not enough and not worthy and not,
Right.
you know, not that we're invisible. The other way I thought about this is there's a lot of populations going underground right now out of fear,
Hmm.
making themselves invisible. And so, how do we still say we love you and care for you in a safe
And we
way?
see you.
Yeah, we see you. Um, and I also think about the people being disappeared by our ICE system.
Yeah.
Um, they are beloved, even if we can't see them, because they are behind concrete walls and bars
Yeah.
um, and our incarceral system, our prison system in general. So, yeah, what is it when we, this is more than the bodily seeing, right? More than the blepo. This is where the horao comes in for me.
Yeah.
Do we take heed? Do we take them into account? Which is another way to read that moneylender parable. What do we take into account?
Hmm.
So, and then I'll just sort of, and I think I could talk. There's a lot here, y'all. This is good stuff.
It
And
is.
then the go in peace at the end is a good way to translate it. Amy Jill said as well as go in wholeness
Oh,
is
okay.
another way to read that. Um, and I kind of like that too. Yeah, go in peace, go in wholeness, go in your belovedness, go in your badass self, your badass beloved self. Um, so yeah, and then just what do you find good about these stories, or where is God's goodness? There's
Yeah.
some questions you could ask your congregation. Um, I already kind of talked about, yeah, that they're beloved. We want
Yep.
our children to know that they are beloved and we see them. So I have not looked at the curriculum for the children's curriculum for this week for Sanctified Arts, but I imagine it could be tied into this seeing piece, or it
Yeah.
wouldn't be hard, right?
Right.
Make binoculars and have them see each other and the congregation. Um, yeah, there's all kinds of things you can do with seeing. And so, yeah, so, my favorite thing is definitely this week. I just can never get enough of The Gospel of Luke by Amy Jill Levine and Bill Witherington III.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm also loving the daily devotions from Sanctified Arts.
Yeah. They're great.
They are great and they're simple, and the mantras are great. And I'm hoping I'm putting mine on my congregation's Facebook every day,
Okay.
except for the weekends when I forget. And I'm going to work on that. I'm like, oh, I could schedule those. I can.
You can, yes.
I just, yeah, it occurred to me Sunday morning. I was like, oh, I didn't post yesterday or today. Oh, uh-oh. So
Well,
it's okay. But I do think that's a lovely way to journey through Lent. Anything you love, Pastor Lita?
oh, I love that book as well. And I love, we had a representative from Lutheran World Relief at our church
Oh,
this
awesome.
past week, and she she talked about um, the way she talked about what Lutheran World Relief does and then what our giving does. She would say, um, "Your love shows up in the mobile medical van that helps the children. Your love shows up." And so she
Yeah,
just had a really beautiful way
I love
of
that.
sharing what's happening through Lutheran World Relief. Yeah.
They're awesome.
Yeah.
They're awesome, awesome, awesome. So I that's exciting. We
Yeah.
need to figure out how to get them to Utah. Like we don't get those very often because
They probably have a region.
oh, I'm sure we're in. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We
Yeah.
need to invite them. That's on us. We haven't invited them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's on us. But yeah, so we hope this was good. I know it was a lot of information. Thanks for hanging in with all my Greek and all my thoughts and bonus thoughts.
They were great. Thank you.
Yeah, like and subscribe. How are the children podcast? And we will see you next week for Lent 3, halfway through already. And I know it's like, whew, time is flying. And all the people online already planning out their Holy Week services are adorable.
Oh,
I
yeah.
love you people that are already like, what are you all doing for Good Friday? And I'm like, oh, that I'm not don't know what I'm doing this Friday, but okay. Yeah. So thank you all for reminding me to get in gear, and it's a joy to spend this time with you.
Yes.
So,
Okay.
all right, we'll see you next
See you
week.
soon.